Welcome everybody to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 172. I'm here with my co-host Cheslea Hopkins, retired WNBA and overseas pro. I don't know if she likes to be called retired pro yet, but we'll talk about that and maybe talk about that later. But how you doing, Cheslea?
Doing good. And to answer your question, I do like to be called retired. Basketball was good to me, and all good things come to an end. So I'm officially retired and happily retired. So everything's good. How are you, Ronnie?
I'm good. Basketball season's kicked off. We had a long weekend. I went to the Bay Area to watch some tip-off classic, NorCal tip-off classic. A lot of good players. We've been following a lot of good teams and players, and there'll be some good games coming up in the next 2 weeks. I think I'm going to be seeing you, Cheslea, in Las Vegas, in your hometown. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll talk about the announcement of the league that was formerly known as the NIBC. We'll get to that, but we'll talk about your retirement thing in our own pod down the line. We'll have a bigger take on what that means, transition, because again, not every pro athlete made $220 million in their career like a Steph Curry or James Harden, right?
This is true.
So we're going to talk about that, and most don't. 90% don't. So we
not
want
even
to
close.
Give our correct. It's everybody $220 million. Yeah, so it's like the only guy we could think of that's like that, it just keeps being in the public eyes, like Shaq. Like, to me, Shaq is everywhere. It's like the guy's been retired from playing for like 20 years.
So many deals, and it on random stuff. You go into Walmart and it's random. Like Shaq's Grill, like.
I know, it's really crazy.
Crazy.
We'll talk about those things later, but we want to get into some hot take items. Number one on our list as we get that is Bryce James. Back at Sierra Canyon. I know you were following that a little bit, and it's like he was going to transfer to Campbell Hall. Mm-hmm. I believe his sister goes there. Then it was like he left there. Maybe the parents didn't like the coaching situation in terms of who got hired, and we didn't want to get into detail of that. But then he went over to Notre Dame, so obviously it was something that wasn't wrong. But you've seen him play, and now he's back at Sierra Canyon. And I can say this, that he's happy to be back at Sierra Canyon. I know he was at their kind of like their version of Midnight Madness when practice started, and he wasn't even going to school there at the time. So I want to get your take, I know you see him as a kid who's got a lot of publicity, a lot of spotlight. It's like, do you think in many respects, like, it's hard for him just to be a young guy? He just wants to be a kid. Like, he's probably happy as a whistle right now. Is there anything wrong with that? Like, he's never going to be quote unquote normal, but he just, it seems like he just wants to be one of the fellas. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he just kind of wants to be with his friends. I think the biggest reason that he went back to Sierra Canyon was eligibility. I was hearing that they weren't going to let him play in certain stuff. There's a couple events coming up that, they wanted him to be a part of the team and him play, but they're saying he's ineligible. So I ultimately think he went back to Sierra Canyon because of eligibility. But I do think that he's probably happier there. I mean, he spent time there. He has friends there. Sometimes that's just the best situation for a kid, in my opinion, just to be in a place in an environment that makes them feel good. And you said he's at their school even when he wasn't technically a student there, so obviously he enjoys being there and being around the people there. So I'm here for it. Basketball, he's an average player, so I don't really feel like does it move the needle that he's switching to all these schools? Probably not. So it's not really, to me, a big deal. I'm happy. Hopefully he'll just stay put and he can just be happy where he's at. What's your take on it?
I think that as long as he's happy and it could be a normal, or as normal as possible for him, as ever normal as it can be, then it's great. Yeah, and you were he would have to sit out at least 30 days on the sit out period, which is big because you're sitting out till December 24th. That's the sit out period date, and you're missing a lot of the season in development, So
how many games?
I can see that for them it would be at least 10, close to 10, I think.
So what, a third of the season?
At least a third. Least a third. And that's a playoff team. Notre Dame's a playoff team. They would be pretty good. And Sierra Canyon's good. Sierra Canyon is really good. They bombed Clovis North in a showcase event at Fresno State. So Sierra Canyon is good.
Yeah.
We talked about Justin Pippen in the preseason show, and they're going to be good. So see, Bryce is going to have to work hard regardless of where he was at to get playing time, make a big impact. So
Okay,
we'll
so
follow that, see how that
let me
goes.
ask you this really quick. Is Bryce just gonna slide back in right into the like how does it work? Like to me, he's just an average player. So it's like, okay, he's back in the school. So it's like, now what? Does he start? Does he take somebody's spot? Is he coming off the bench?
I think he's going to be coming off the bench for at least a while. Chelsea, as I seen in the fall, and the reason I put them in the rankings, they play hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they defensively, they're really good. They really get after it. And like we said, they haven't really had Isaiah Iholim, who's considered one of the best players in the country. He really hasn't been in the lineup.
Yeah.
They've kind of just gelled as a defensive team, and they really get after it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he, integrates in the lineup with Iholim, because they got some depth and they got some athletes, and they can really get out and run and press and defend. So we'll see how they do. And like I said, they are in the Fab 50, moved up this week a few spots. They're undefeated.
Nice.
Number 38 from 46 in the preseason, 4-0. So we'll move on from that. But good luck to Bryce and Sierra Canyon. Let's talk a little bit about this that kind of touches me personally as a journalist. Sports Illustrated came out earlier this week on Monday that they're using kind of like AI generated stories and even fake author profiles. It's like, wow, we don't know the details of that much. We're not like computer experts. Me and you, I don't think we'd consider ourselves that, but we know what AI means. It's just like computer generated stories, probably regurgitated words from the computers. And you're able to piece together a story. Chelsea Hopkins scored 28 points for Mojave. Yeah. Mojave moves to 9-1. it's like computer generated, right? But the thing there is on that, like, Sports Illustrated is not just a run of the mill blog or something. It's supposed to be at the highest level of like sports journalism, and we know it's not no more. We've known that. I've known that. I don't know if you've known that well, but still has the brand name. And to come out with, what's your first reaction when you hear something like that?
It kind of makes me sad. I mean, I'm not, a journalist by any means, but I do have friends in that space, and
Sure.
you can kind of consider yourself a journalist too as well, Ronnie, as many write-ups and stuff as you do. And I just feel like it's an industry that's just super underappreciated. And this is kind of just even more a slap in the face. Like, I know how hard it is just, for people to get their pieces published and to just, kind of put some respect on the stories that they're bringing to the forefront. And now it's like, it just, they feel like robots and stuff could just replace everybody and everything. And you're seeing that kind of as a trend in a lot of other spaces as well. So it's just weird. It's like really weird times. Like journalism to me is supposed to be personal in a sense. You tap into sometimes relationships and stories. You're bringing stories to life that people otherwise wouldn't, maybe wouldn't know about. And so, to just kind of put in a couple tidbits in a computer and have them come up with something, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't even really know how to describe it. It's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause even when you were around, when you were young, even let's say 2005, 2008, 2000, SI still had a hell of a brand. And if you came out in SI or if you, were featured or team you featured, you didn't want to read it. Like that's a pinnacle, especially for high school athletes that came out on the cover, whether it's Jabari Parker, LeBron James, not too many. Like that was a big moment.
Yeah.
It kind of stamped you, you know what I mean? Like, and for that to fall off so quickly, especially when you're making computer generated authors and fake profiles, like what? And then so that brand is being killed by that. I mean, that really hurt from the journalistic side. Again, the public might have a different view, but like you said, from my side and some of my colleagues, that's like a really big blow. Like it hurts everybody, how do we know Ballislife doesn't have AI generated stories? Like it hurts everybody. So that's a, note on that. What, real quick before we move on. Yeah, it's just disappointing. What did you like to read as a young girl? Where did you get any information about girls basketball?
Well, there wasn't really a lot of, publications that were really going crazy on girls basketball, but just like Slam magazine in particular, which is still around, they used to do a lot of write-ups on everybody across the board. That's kind of it. And the write-ups that you would see on ESPN. I mean, when I was playing, it was like Hoop Girls, which I don't know if, is Hoop Girls still a thing on the women's side? Not anymore.
Yeah, I think it's like under the W brand, the ESPN W brand. Yeah,
I'm
not sure it's
maybe they've rebranded, but But it was like
Yeah.
Hoop Girls publications and just little write-ups that you would see, like, across the board on ESPN girls high school basketball recruiting and stuff like that. That's where you would really find the stuff for us. And it was on a much smaller scale, obviously, than what they did on the boys' side. But that was really it. So it's kind of sad to see like how times have just changed so much and kind of just how things are different,
Yeah.
And maybe
And on
not
the last
like,
one for that, go ahead.
and not different, like really in a good way. Like we're
No.
kind of just losing. We're just a little out of touch with everything. And I don't know if, a lot of stuff, it's a business. So maybe they don't want to pay people anymore. Hey, we'd rather just,
No.
weed them out that way. But it's just, I don't know. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. For me, my generation, we read a lot. The newspaper was big. So I can start listening by the time you guys were graduating, your generation graduated from high school was kind of weeding out of that as a little
Yeah.
bit. You guys didn't really take to the newspapers as much as we did. And then the previous generation. So that, I will say this, the Bryce Jameses, the Mikey Williams, and those guys are getting more publicity than ever. But the average player from down the block is not. Newspaper coverage used to be good, Cheslea. They used to have JV scores, B and C. Like they would put stuff so you could be in, like, save something. A newspaper clip was big. It was really detailed in a lot of communities across America, and it's just we've lost all that.
And we did have that when I was in high school. I mean, the Review Journal in Las Vegas. My mom used to collect my newspaper clippings and the articles and stuff like that. So it was a thing. And the Review Journal is still running in Las Vegas, but I don't know what the sports page looks like, and it just seems like everything is kind of changed with social media popping up, and people just want to see highlights, and it is not about write-ups and stories so much anymore. It's about just that wow factor and what they can post quickly on a social media page.
No doubt. Yeah, it's something that we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's a big shocking thing, which is just because of the name Sports Illustrated. I think it's like, wow, like I said, you grow up reading that, and it really had a lot of credibility. A1 writers, some of the greatest writers that we've known for the last 40 to 50 years have worked for there. So, we'll see what happens and what comes of that and how much it really hurts. Speaking of getting hurt, this is a crazy take. There's a young player in Hinsdale South High School, Brendan Savage. He's a senior, 224, and his parents are suing the Hinsdale Township School District and several Hinsdale South employees in an attempt to get her son, or the son Brandon, back on the boys' team. His mother Erin filed a lawsuit in U.S. District Court. It alleges that Hinsdale South boys basketball coach Michael Belcaster cut her son as retaliation for the family filing a complaint against the previous coach, whose name is Michael Moretti. On May 7th of 2023, a lawyer representing the family filed a complaint with the school board against Moretti, who's now the former coach, alleging verbal abuse, that kind of bullying. So obviously they removed him, and the new coach seems to be his friend. Let me ask you a quick question. Just put you on the hot seat. Like, do you think, are you surprised that doesn't happen more often? Or like, we don't hear about it? Like, do you think, retaliation and the, that kind of thing is kind of, doesn't happen as often? You think it surprised doesn't happen? Or do you think it also is pushing coaches out? Like, I don't even want to tackle this because some parent's going to go crazy and sue me. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think retaliation 100% happens in kind of all spaces. One thing that I read, and there's so much misinformation on social media. So I actually first came across this story on Twitter, and I read that the kid was all state or like all tournament like the previous years. So you know what? This is retaliation. He's the best player on the team, or arguably. So
he's two-time all-conference.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to set a precedent, because obviously when you do stuff like this, then sometimes you open Pandora's box, and then people come out the woodworks with cases and arguments and stuff like that. But this kid, based off of what I read on Twitter, I believe that he has a case. The last two previous years, whether it was his sophomore or junior year, he was all state or all conference, and he was a very valuable player on the team. And now all of a sudden he's not good enough to be at the team at all. It's strange, Ronnie. So I don't want to say that this is the case all the time, but I think that this family might be onto something. I don't know what's going to become of it, but they're not wrong.
No, they're not wrong, because the only thing that I say is the problem is the time. It's kind of like you said about Bryce James. Like, his senior is going by, they're playing, he's going to need an injunction. And then when you put him back on the team, it's like, oh my God, like, does coach have to start him? And like, now you have a big problem. That seems to be the big problem. Like, okay, Cheslea, I booted her off the Mojave team because I don't like her, even though she was all conference, but like, she's back on the team now. And do I have to start her? Like, now you're not even coaching the team, or that would seem like it'd be such a distraction. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
true. I feel like it would be easier for the kid to just go to a different school, but because even you go through the court, the court filing and stuff like that. Like, how quickly does that put him back on the team at the end of the season? It like halfway through this, because as of now the season is going and he's not on the team. So
correct.
So it just makes sense. Like, even if he had I don't know, what the rules are there, but we talk about Bryce James having to sit out for 30 days. This kid could go somewhere, sit out a little bit, and maybe catch the second half of his season and be just fine. But I don't like to see this, because the kid being a senior, if he isn't signed, he's missing out on opportunity potentially to get a scholarship. The timing is really bad. And in that case, like it enhances this case. He's all state. He may miss out on a scholarship because of his inability to play, because you're mad for, whatever reason.
Yeah, the retaliation because he filed a complaint. So, it's very tenuous. If you file a complaint against a coach, whether it's any coach, that is taken serious now. Really serious. It wasn't like before where like the parents had a meeting with the coach and be like, okay, let's iron out our differences. Like, dude, if you get something filed, school districts don't want to be sued. That's number one. They just want to stay away from that as much as possible. So they usually get rid of the coaches. And that makes it tough for coaches. Let's go on the flip side. That just makes it tough for coaches. People are just like, I'll just coach AU, or I'll just coach my grassroots team. I don't need this hurdles, the bureaucratic hurdles. Again, I'm not speaking specifically of this instance, but like, it's very difficult, especially with the small stipends. It's really hard to be a coach. So I give command to all the people who are high school coaches.
No,
it's not big, Cheslea. It typically takes a lot of time. You're dealing with a lot. And parents are way more demanding than they used to be. I mean, even in the JV level.
No, absolutely. I mean, my dad was a coach for 25 years in the state of Nevada. So I'm very familiar with the process. And I will say to these coaches' defense that these kids are different. They will file a complaint about anything. So that's why I don't want to just say like, but I just think in this particular case, because of how talented the kid obviously was, like there's obviously an issue here. But these kids they make it really hard. So I commend all people that take the time to deal with some of these kids, because they are just different. Like it's not like back in the day where you can be stern with them or anything like that, because be out the window that fast.
You'll be out the window that fast. Yeah. And just a take on that is in corporal punishment in schools was outlawed in 1986, but was already kind of outlawed federally, but it was already kind of outlawed in 40 states and school districts before that, but that was official. So that was almost 40 years ago. Like, I was in elementary school and there were still like SWATs in kindergarten. Like the teacher can hit you with a ruler. So like, I kind of caught the tail end of that. I'm kind of like, oh God, I didn't need to get involved in that, but I can see where the old school teachers, I had some old school teachers young when my kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade. I could see that those teachers were from like the 70s and like they were not playing, like, so I can imagine what coaches were like back then. Oh boy.
And these kids need some SWATs, truly.
Yeah.
So I know they don't do it that way anymore, but like I'm being serious, and this is just a side note, but I have seen more fights, altercations and stuff with teachers than I have ever seen in my entire life on social media. Just it's normal. These kids are talking back to the teachers, fighting the teachers, hitting the teachers, like, so the times are just weird, like all around. So
you mentioned that it's a big difference now. Especially there was that case here in Las Vegas. 4 or 5 students are getting charged as adults for whipping a kid's to death. Basically, the kid died. That's huge. I mean, you don't think about like, oh, I'm gonna wake up. My kid's going to go to school. Yeah, he may be getting bullied. He may be not socially popular. He's a little awkward, but like, ain't no parent thinking like my kid's not going to come home today. Like, this is no way. Like that's like you said, that's insane. Like, it's you just going to school. So it's a real issue, depression and kids being down. And I never really experienced it. I was always involved in sports and stuff like that. I was always kind of a slick talking smart ass, to be honest with you. And I was on a bus a lot. I was exploring different things. Like, it was such a fun time for me. Just that's why I kind of got into what I'm into now. I learned people from and players from different schools and different areas of LA. I thought it was normal. I guess it wasn't normal, you know. Like I would tell my coaches, like, yo, he's good. Like, this guy is a good outside shooter. That my coach used to ask me, and I'd be like, I just thought that was normal. I thought
Yeah.
every school was like that. Like, you wanted to know about other players, but it's clearly not. And you know, our condolences to the kid in Las Vegas who lost his life.
No.
Just basically, like you said, over what you said starts young, not correcting them, not
Yeah.
having control in the classroom. It's really bad. So not only are coaches having a hard time, teachers in America, it's a really tough profession. They're not paid enough, and it's really bad. So
Yeah.
hopefully that we something breaks through and that changes at some point. But speaking of cases and court cases, let's move on to something that we're going to talk about down the line, but we want to kind of touch on and give people um, a little tidbit on it. Is this House versus NCAA class action lawsuit? Judge Claudia Wilkin, who we kind of know, we've said that name before on this pod. We've talked a lot about it on NIL. She's kind of a U.S. District Circuit judge based in Northern California.
Yep.
And a lot of the NCAA cases she's ruled on, and she's ruled against the NCAA. Well, she's involved in another one.
Wow.
And like I mentioned, it's House versus NCAA in 2021. She denied you know, that a motion from the NCAA to dismiss the case was denied, so the case continued. Basically, the gist of it is that the athletes were denied NIL until 2021, as we've talked about many times, and you know, and being on TV. So, Cheslea, this could be a $4 billion case settlement. The big issue, like I said, is whether current and former athletes deserve NIL back pay. I know you probably have some strong thoughts about that. And as of now, if it continues to move forward, the trial date is January 25th, 2025. So we'll be following it. But if they lose that case, Cheslea, you know, and people get NIL back pay, I don't know how far it is. Like,
Yeah.
what's your highlight and your hot take? What does that do to the NCAA? And where does that leave this whole college sports, really?
I mean, I think it's over for the NCAA. And I know like that might be crazy to think about, but I feel no sympathy for them. One, as a collegiate athlete who was a player of the year in my conference, maybe I would have got a little NIL, you know, at the time, but not even thinking about that. Like, I just think about how the NCAA was so greedy that they did not get ahead of this. They opened up Pandora's box by just shutting down any inkling of an athlete making any type of money for the smallest things. Punishments for a kid accepting a meal, like ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, it's
so
been ridiculous.
They created this. They absolutely created this, and you know, I think it's a little bit unreal. Like, if they make this go back far, they're gonna owe a lot of people a lot of money. There's no way that the NCAA can survive.
Yeah, survive. Yeah.
Like, how far back are they gonna go? Are they gonna go back to like Reggie Bush, like people that like that? You know, like just imagine they would owe a ton of people a lot of money. But I just don't feel bad for them. Like, I think that honestly, they need to try to figure out, you know, like how they're gonna do this, which I don't really know how it can be done, because they would just owe so much money to so many people. But I don't feel bad, and I can't see them surviving this. That they have, because they denied athletes their economic rights for so long. You know, they're gonna be they open themselves up now that NIL finally got passed to all these antitrust lawsuits, and these people have the case. They have the case every single time. Every single time. NCAA loves to violate antitrust laws. They open themselves up to this, and now they're gonna kind of get what's been coming to them. I really feel like the wheels are falling off, Ronnie. I don't know how long it's gonna take. But I cannot see them, you know, getting past this. And I already read something on Twitter today that they were like trying to, I don't know if they're lawyers or whoever's trying to come out and say, like, if you guys set a precedent for, you know, if they lose this college NIL litigation case, like, we're gonna owe so much money, like there's not, like, we can't recover. But it's like, you kind of created this. So It is what it is.
They know they can't pay this lawsuit out if they lose it. Again, it's supposed
Yeah.
to go to trial on 2/25 January.
Mhm.
So, we're gonna follow it. We might even get our guy Ramogi Huma, who's kind of spearheaded a lot of this
Yeah.
talk down the line. And again, but we just want people to be aware of it because this changes fundamentally what we cover, how we cover
Mhm.
it. And then, so the question I have for you, let's just say college football, and for argument's sake, boys, men's basketball kind of breaks off. Maybe there's power conferences and they start something that's not the NCAA. What is your take? What do you think it would mean for non-revenue sports basically to turn into club sports? So, like, let's say somebody had rowing or they like tennis and it's no longer like NCAA championship. What do you think it means for especially women that if it's just a club sport, it's not a revenue generating mechanism, it's just a sport? What do you think about that? What do you think that means?
I think that's the difficulty
Yeah.
because you have so
Yeah.
many sports that don't generate revenue, or you
Sure.
have a men's sport that may generate revenue and a women's sport that doesn't.
Sure.
So, I would hope that maybe if the NCAA, is not there anymore, there could be a little bit of self-governance where we figure out a collective bargaining amongst the school in its entirety and how they're going to be able to, allocate where money
Right.
is going. And
Yeah.
I don't know the answers. I'm gonna be totally honest, but I know
Sure.
that there's enough money because I see
Yeah.
that these buyouts of these coaches getting fired and stuff like that. The
Yeah.
money is ridiculous. The
Yeah.
NCAA has made a lot of money for a really, really long time. The
Sure.
schools have money that they've made off of the kids, which are the product. And yes, they are
Yeah.
providing the platform. So I understand there's give and take.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, I don't know how they're going to get this done, but I just feel like they opened up Pandora's box. And I really hope that when the time comes, they'll be able to figure out how to manage sports like that. Because
Yeah.
you don't want to take away, if it's really about the athletes, or the students, like you say, you don't want to take away, something that somebody's doing, whether even if it's not a revenue generating sport. There's a lot of sports that probably don't bring in as much money as obviously football or basketball, but they
Sure.
still have a right to exist.
So
So
you
maybe
think they should have some kind of plan as they know it's coming to make these sports viable and still be
I think they need
championship
to.
sports?
I
Okay.
think that would be the fair thing to do.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair because otherwise you
Yeah.
would have to kind of get rid of it.
Yeah.
But
No, I just think on my end, and again, I'm going to take the other side, is that I
yeah,
think colleges will look at it like, okay, we have this football, we have this basketball, and in some cases, men and women's basketball. Like, great, this is our moment where we can just cut those other sports, let them be club
mm,
sports, let them govern themselves because they're not making any money, and then we'll
true.
pay what we need to the athletes that are generating. I think it's their way to. But again, if they're federally funded and get Title IX, that's going to be a huge issue. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I
So
can
what
see
happens with
where.
the scholarships though on your end? So
Yeah,
you're
well,
saying they become club sports and govern themselves? Are they still going to be able to get like
yeah,
I'm on a
they may have
swimming
to raise the
scholarship?
money themselves. They may have to
Oh
raise the money
wow,
themselves,
no.
because baseball doesn't have full scholarships. Like, let's just be baseball.
Oh
It's
really?
not like, yeah, it's not like football and basketball. They give partial scholarships. They have
I
a
didn't
very
know that.
small allotment. They have less allotment than there is r- players on the roster. So you don't want to really see that with girls sports because then it just makes it harder for it to participate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Girls scholarships in Title IX in general has helped so many women get an education, get involved in careers post sports, and I think this will be a big moment in that. And since it's male dominated, and in my opinion, it's a way for them to say, "Hey, we can't do these no more. So what are we going to do here? We got to cut all these sports, male and women, because sports have already been cut." Chelsea, I don't know if you've
Yeah.
been following that. Stanford, Cal, a lot of people have cut
Yeah.
sports that we don't talk about all the time because it's not generally revenating. So it's already happened,
Yeah.
But Title IX's a monster. That's going to be a monster in all this. I don't know how they're going to do it, but we'll follow it. But it's going to hurt women. This change is going to hurt women's sports in some way or form.
You
It
think
is.
so?
Just don't
Well,
know
I mean, yeah.
and you got to you're optimistic about it. I'm a little bit more pessimistic, but I think most people would already say that many colleges are already in violation of Title IX the way they're operating now. Just they
That's the
haven't
case.
grappled it. They haven't got to it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
kind of like a corner that needs a red light and people are speeding through it and not stopping. It's already there. We just haven't tackled it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So
can see that.
it's kind of a interesting situation. It's going to be changed. It's going to change what we know as sports. That's why we're bringing it up now. Again, we'll tackle it on a episode probably by itself down the line. But
Yeah.
we don't have all the answers today. But yeah, it's going to affect a lot. So we definitely, that's one of that along with the NCAA case is a topic we want to get back to.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of NCAA and speaking of college sports, we have a really hot item that you've been talking about, and I'm just gonna kind of give you an exam on this, Cheslea. I'm not gonna. We're not gonna talk about it much. We've already talked about it. It's Angel Reese and all that entails her athletic career at LSU and what she's going through right now. I'm just gonna ask you these questions, and we'll maybe give ourselves once you come up with a grade for it. I'm just gonna ask you again. We're talking about Angel Reese, and she's still out as far as we know as the time we're shooting this pod from LSU's team, traveling team. So obviously they're defending NCAA champions in women's basketball. So Cheslea, question number 1: will she come back to the team?
Yes.
Okay, she's going to come back to the team. Okay. Question number 2: can the relationship between Angel Reese and Kim Mulkey be salvaged? Like, are they going to have a good working relationship for the rest of the season?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we've seen it before with Kim and Brittany. They were still functional, for the most part. So whether the relationship's great or not, Angel wants to play. Kim's going to be the coach. That's not going to change. So I think that they'll figure it out.
Okay. So they figure it out. She plays, they figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Now speaking of her, we haven't spoken to her that much about her game. We've kind of been talking about bigger topics in the last 2 pods. Will she be as good in this year's NCAA tournament as she was last year?
She's going to be good because the way that she plays in college, it's not predicated off being like a really skilled basketball player. Okay. And I hate to say that, but she has a dog mentality, which means I'm going to trash talk you and chest bump you and too small you and beat my chest. And then, and then I'm an athlete. So that's her claim to fame right now. Like, I don't want to play her as a player, but it's like her game is not predicated off being a really skilled basketball player. It's the dog mentality. She's going to play hard, and she's more athletic than most people that she's playing against. Okay. So yeah, I think she's going to be fine.
Wow. Okay. That's a surprising answer a little bit for me, just based on what I've seen her live. We can talk about that after we're done with this quiz. So you answered those 3. Bigger arching question: will AR be a flash in the pan as far as this model of big time women NIL stars go? Do you think, when I mean by flash in the pan, do you think she's just going to be here today and gone tomorrow? Or will future endorsers be hesitant if this doesn't work out this season? Like, is she a flash in the pan, Cheslea, or do you think legitimate endorsers are like, okay, we're watching this situation. If this doesn't work, we're going to be hesitant to give too much money to girl because it's so predicated on her having a good relationship with her school and her coach and her being on the court. If she's not available on the court, I think she does lose some value. So what do you think there? Is she a flash in the pan?
I think availability definitely makes somebody lose value. Like, yeah, I'm sponsoring this girl and she's not playing and nobody knows why. And there's rumors circulating that she's not smart and it's because of, academic eligibility or, whatever. So it definitely hurts. But on the flip side, what drew her to these endorsement deals that she got, or what drew people to her, is the fact that she's unapologetically herself. Okay. She's a Black girl from Baltimore who is not afraid to talk trash and be her in some of the biggest, most pressurable moments. So that's kind of what, and credit to her, that's what got her to this place. But yeah, availability is an issue. Nobody wants to sponsor somebody and them not be available. Like, the point of us sponsoring you is you being out there and the Mercedes-Benz and coach saying, yeah, that's our girl. Like, she's playing. So
yeah, pulling up in the Mercedes-Benz. Yeah,
correct. So
she's not pulling up in the Mercedes-Benz right now. So what value does it have?
Correct. So it is an issue, 100%. But I don't think that she's just gonna fall off the face of the earth now that she hasn't been playing for 3 weeks.
Okay, so you don't think she's a flash in the pan. You think she has some sustainability as far as marketability
in college, for sure. I don't know about the next level.
Okay. And that was my last question. And this is really putting you on the on the seat and really giving you a test question is, will she lose value in a WNBA uniform compared to LSU uniform? Is she as valuable in a W uniform as she is in LSU's fan base and their large following?
No, she's not, because when you get to the W, it's about being a really good player. And I don't want to say that she's not a good player, but she's not a W great player. She's just not. And credit to her, she knows that. I've followed her. I've listened to her interviews and seen her say that she's not ready for the WNBA. And she's absolutely right. And the good thing about her having that, kind of self-awareness is that she does have time to develop to become something formidable in the WNBA. But as is, she's not going to be a WNBA player that would likely even be mentioned often. She would be on, somebody's maybe rotation at the end, and hopefully keeping a job and trying to improve. But she's not going to hit the ground running in the WNBA. I don't see that, because her game to me is just predicated a lot of athleticism, and everybody's athletic in the W, and then they're good at basketball too. So it's like, she's got to get better.
It's really exclusive. Correct. She's got to get better. Okay. So those are the questions I want to ask you. I think you answered them, and I'll say your grade is at least a B plus. I'll say B plus because
I'll take it.
Yeah, because you're being honest. You're kind of saying she's not going to be a WNBA star, and that the endorsements are just not going to roll in. It's just not going to roll in because she's part of the league. My argument is that she's kind of more valuable in the LSU uniform unless she plays for the right WNBA team in the right situation. Like you said, if she's not in the marquee games and not talked about a lot in the playoffs, I think she's going to fizzle out a little bit. That's just my take
the WNBA is the most exclusive league in the world.
Yeah.
It's hard. There's people that are really good that couldn't stick in the WNBA. Yeah. I couldn't stick in the WNBA. There's a laundry list of girls who couldn't stick in the WNBA. The WNBA is historically a league that will cut their first round picks.
It's cutting first round picks, correct.
So it's like, you can't just, you got to really be good to like be somebody. And like I said, she has time to grow, develop, and I wish that for her. I'm saying, as is, my evaluation of her is that she's a supreme athlete and a great college player. She won't be a supreme athlete, and she's not that good of a basketball player when she goes to the WNBA, as is. Period.
Okay. That's why you got the B plus. So that's good. I appreciate that take and the honesty, because it's a situation people talk a lot about, but they don't talk a lot about her game. And I just don't see her right now as a long-standing endorsee in some WNBA team. I think she's going to lose a little luster just because, and that's credit to LSU and the women's NCAA college brand. It's a really great brand. We're not going to talk too much about the college this pod, but we will as the season goes along, about South Carolina, maybe how good they could be, and some other great players. But it's just the average WNBA team right now, to me, doesn't. Again, I'm just being a little honest, I guess, or like calling from a person who's not super invested in every single team. Like the LSU brand is just stronger than some of the NBA brands. So unless she's in the right situation, she's going to be a little bit like, she's going to have to really, really hard to increase her endorsement deals, that kind of thing, so.
Yeah. But I don't even know, she's made so much money in endorsements, Ronnie, that I don't even know if that is going to even be her focus when the time comes. Wow. I know sometimes you get a little taste of fame or money, and it's like, okay, like, how do I get more? But also too, some people, don't necessarily have to be in the spotlight for the rest of their life. If it ends at college, she had an amazing run. She made what, 1.7 billion?
She can invest it right. Go back to Baltimore and be
and then maybe she goes to the W and says, okay, my next goal is to be a formidable player that sticks in this league. Maybe the goal is for her to play 10 WNBA seasons. I don't know. I don't know this girl. I don't know what her goals and stuff are, but we talk so much on the pod just about what's a failure and what's a success. Yeah. I'm rooting for Angel Reese just as a Black woman and somebody that has been thrown into the spotlight, and it's difficult and it's hard. But I'm saying, she, just because she's, running in the endorsement deals now, if they stopped at the WNBA, but she was still able to be on a roster and be formidable, then that would be okay. Yeah, that didn't mean that she didn't succeed. Yeah, like so I don't want to make it seem like it's like, oh well, she doesn't get these deals anymore, it's over. It's like no. Like she did good. She did more than most. She's had more money and endorsements than I've ever even got close to having. So that you gotta, see the bright side in some of this stuff as well.
No doubt. Yeah. And hopefully it works out and hopefully she gets back on the court. We'll see what happens. It's going to be
Yeah.
something we watch. As we switch gears here, and we want to talk about our main topic. Again, we're premier high school grassroots pod. That's what we talk about a lot in that lens. Even when we talk about pro or college, we're still talking in that lens of the grassroots and high school space. And,
Yeah.
and it's something that touches with us because we're going to talk about in our scouting report segment about a lot of arching topics, but it's mainly about the NBA and young players. And we want to touch on these players as the season goes along. And I know we gave a lot of in the draft show and a lot of shows we talked a lot about the young stars and Victor Wembanyama, how great player he can be. And me and you are kind of a little bit on opposite takes of this. And you have your thoughts on like rookie of the year or players who do young. And I have a take on like more about the NBA in terms of winning culture. And like you said, being on the right team. And that goes into the WNBA too, where being on the right team matters. So,
Yeah.
what is your highline take on some of these young players, mostly rookies, and what do you see out there so far about 15 games and 15, 20 games in the season?
Well, I'm going to set the tone by saying I feel that Chet is the front runner currently for Rookie of the Year. I've had the opportunity to watch him and pretty much, everybody else. I think Brandon Miller has been a surprise. Charlotte's not very good, but he wasn't really good in preseason, or not preseason, but summer league. And people were kind of worried, like, okay, he's not that great. But I think Brandon Miller has figured it out. He's going to be all right. Long, athletic. I think he's going to be okay. But I have Chet first. Ultimately, I'm a fan of Wemby. I think it's incredible to see the highlights and stuff, and the way he moves and all that stuff's great. At the end of the day, his team has 3 wins on the season. Their team is god awful. They need a point guard. They need some leadership. And I look at Chet Holmgren, who has the same stats as Wemby on a winning, maybe Western Conference Finals type of team. That OKC team is very good, and he is going to be a really bright spot on a team that's going to win this year. They're not going to win the championship, but they're going to be in the mix. San Antonio is not even going to be in the playoffs. So that's why I have him as the early favorite, even though I know the narrative and the agenda is to make sure Wemby gets it, and he probably will. But Chet would be my pick so far.
Chet Holmgren, who's our 221 Mr. Basketball, National Player of the Year, and then he went to Gonzaga, and then he got hurt in Jamal Crawford.
Yeah, but Seattle
Pro League, and it's like I don't know when that happened, we were like, oh boy, and we talked about it on that 222 draft show, and we kind of talked about the same thing in the 223 draft show. In the 222 draft show, we talked about comparing him to Ralph Sampson, and injury. And then we talked in 223 comparing Victor to Ralph Sampson and injury. But to me, it's like the Chet injury kind of
helped him.
Yeah, like it maybe got him stronger. It got him to see the rigors of the league, what he would need to do to prepare. He could watch from the sidelines. He could watch a good team grow. The team, and now he's just like getting another number 1 pick. Like type player on the team. So we don't want to say it helped because nobody wants to get hurt, but it, like in your words, the perspective, it helped the perspective, helped them prepare.
Yes, and to have that year to just get acclimated, to work on your body, to not have pressure. He probably feels so good about his game because it's like he's been practicing, he's put on some weight, like you're just more prepared. So I think that makes a difference. I really do. And I think right now, like, if people were just being honest, he's got to be the one.
Yeah.
If the award was given today.
That. Okay. Yeah, we'll see about that because again, Spurs are bad. I want to talk a few about other bad things and get your take on this.
Okay.
Especially we all watch highlights we all busy. Everybody's got, you got a
Yeah.
job, I got a job. We get on this pod when we can. Ani's got a job. Ani will be back with us on the next pod. He's just busy, our guy Ani Umana. But um, if you just watch the highlights, you're like, wow, all these rookies and second year guys are doing awesome, because that seems to be the focus of like NBA podcasters and guys who break down film, analytics guys. And then you watch the game a little closer, and then you look at the team's record, and you're like, God damn, this team's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, this team is not good, whether it's the Thompson twins with the Blazers and Detroit with Jalen Duran and him, and even Cade Cunningham coming back from injury. Like, you want to see these guys do good. But what I see is not so good defense, some numbers, and some awful teams for some of these guys. So
Yeah.
what's your take on that, where guys are doing good, putting up numbers, but playing on really bad teams compared to, like you said, maybe guys who are contributing less, but in a better situation, can get some playoff experience and maybe help themselves down the line? It obviously, the players we just mentioned are going to stick in the league. They seem like they're doing good, but they're not all doing as good as we think we are. That's my take. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're all doing as good as we think they are, but I do think that there needs to always be a learning curve and like grace that we give these young, athletes. Like, if a team is really bad, although it's not great for morale to have 2 wins like on the season at this point, and I think it weighs on you. Like I've watched Cade Cunningham in his interview. His post-game interviews. We're really sorry. We're really bad. Like he says that. He knows that. He's aware. Like, so, they're not aware of the situation, and I think it sucks. But at the same time, like, you just got to really grind it out and be willing to build. And that's a patience thing that you have to have with these young guys. And we've seen it with OKC. Like, imagine, I was thinking about this the other day. Imagine, I know he went in a trade, but SGA, for example, the Clippers had him, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, traded him for Paul George, and SGA is like a superstar. Like, he is ascending like crazy. And at the time he wasn't that good. So, he's an asset that you trade or whatever. But like, if you can, take on the mindset of OKC, like you bring these people in, you develop, you got to put some pieces around and put it together, then it could become something. And that's ultimately what I think these young teams need to strive for. Like, San Antonio, same thing. They need veteran leadership. They need a point guard. They need somebody that, knows that, okay, this is supposed to be Wemby's team. So like, maybe he should like get the ball. There's been so many games where there's people on the team that are shooting more than him. Yeah, there's like no direction, So I just feel like it's hard to be on a really bad team, but if these teams are really investing and trying to do things the right way, then 3-4 years down the line, it could become something. And I'm really watching that with OKC, and their team is really good. So obviously, it does help Chet to be on a better team in a better environment. But that's just the way the luck of the draw and the way that the draft is. Like, if you're a really good pick, you're gonna go to a sorry team.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to get past those years.
And I think that's changed a little bit, because before the days of being able to watch every game on League Pass and social media, we knew college stars. And when I was a kid, and we're like, yeah, he's balling, he's a great player, and he can be on a bad team. We didn't look at it different. We just said, hey, he's a damn good player, but we didn't look at it in the lens we do now, because we only watched the best teams. The only teams that are on TV were the Lakers, Bulls, Pistons, and Michael Jordan on WGN. Like, we didn't get a chance to watch like, Mitch Richmond that much, unless you really were a big fan of the Golden State Warriors. He's a hell of a player. Things like that. Glenn Rice in Charlotte. It was awesome before he came to the Lakers. You didn't get to watch every Charlotte game, just looked at it a little differently. Now it's like broken down. Every big play is broken down. There's all these advanced analytics. So it sometimes puts a little too much praise, I think, on players that are not having the impact that we think they are. And it sucks for like a guy like Cade Cunningham, whose high school team didn't lose his senior year. He was a National Player of the Year before Chet. And then he goes to a pretty good college team, like that he's relied on to win. But like when you get to the NBA, you're going to lose a lot. So that's a question I want to ask you. You play for a winning high school team. San Diego State wins a lot more than they lose.
Mm-hmm.
What's the mindset let's say you're in the WNBA team and you go 5-5, whatever. You go 2-2, and you're like, how do girls, and maybe you can even speak for some of your friends, how do you get used to losing? How does that compare to high school and college? You don't lose when you're in high school and college. Good players, they don't lose that much, as we've what do you do when you go home, or what do you do when you got to go to practice tomorrow? Is that part of the main part of being a pro, or what, from your perspective, what does that do, losing?
I think you hit it on the head. It is the main part of being a pro,
Yeah.
being able to try to adjust and adapt in certain situations that are, sometimes miserable, or even deflating. Like it's hard, but ultimately, like if you're trying to stick in a league, which everybody, everybody's dreams when you're at that level were to be, at that level.
Sure.
So you try to figure out, ways to make it work and how you can just, individually get better to contribute to, the team winning. But it's hard, man. It is hard being on a bad team. And anybody who has, played could probably, speak to that. But sometimes that's, every team in every league's not good. So that's the way that sports also works. So just kind of keeping things in perspective, trying to be the best version of yourself individually, because ultimately the better you become as an individual, you're going to, ultimately make the team better as well. But I don't really know if there's one answer for it. I think every athlete can speak to a time where it's just like, damn, like.
So what did you do, Cheslea? Did you call your mom and be like, God damn, Mom? What did you do if you were just having a bad couple games in the league, or you're like, oh damn, I don't know if I'm gonna get cut, I may not last that past this contract, what did you do, you personally?
For me, and I've been cut many times, WNBA, by pretty much every team in every scenario. But like, I think what helped me is when I got to a point where I just was like, if I'm doing everything that I know I could possibly be doing to be the best version of myself on the court, then you live with the results. And that may sound like a bad attitude, but it's like, if I am eating right, Ronnie, shooting, getting extra shots up, working as hard as I can in practice, doing this, doing that, like, I can't physically be any better. Like, I'm doing the best that I can. So the end result sometimes is not up to me. Our team is garbage. So even me doing all that stuff, we still lose. Like, and there's a lot of different variables that go into different things, like being a pro, but that's honestly what helped me. Like, and I did a lot more winning than I did losing, but just being cut and stuff, and in the WNBA many times where it's just like, hey, I'm here on a 10-day contract. I didn't even get in the game, Ronnie. So how was I able to show myself? How was I able to prove myself? But I came early and I got my shots up, and I did everything that I could possibly do to be ready for whatever moment I was given, and I didn't get the moment, and I was sent home. But you can wallow and cry and be upset, and everybody has emotions when it comes to certain stuff. But I really, especially overseas and after getting cut so many times in WNBA, I'm like, yo, I'm doing all that I could do. And sometimes, unfortunately, the best that you could do, Ronnie, is not good enough, or not enough for, whatever the end goal is. And you have to just kind of be okay with that.
Okay, that's good. That's some good insight for our listeners and people who strive to make a college team, or even one day be in the pro. Like, you're gonna have to deal with that, because
oh my God,
the average pro loses so much more than the average college and high school star. Like,
that's true.
So speaking of winning and losing, we'll switch gears here and talk a little bit about our closing topic, and that is, and we're speaking of those high level players and guys who didn't lose, and that's mainly the lot of talent in what was the NIBC, the National Interscholastic Basketball Conference. Recently, since our last pod, it came out that it's now going to be branded and it's called the Nike EYBL Scholastic. So he has their imprint on the high school realm. Obviously they're huge and they've been big on the grassroots scene, and they're big in the high school scene as far as providing apparel and gear to high school teams. That started about our guy Sonny Vaccaro started that after he did it with colleges when he was with Nike in the 80s and the early 90s. We talked to him on this pod before, and he kind of got that started with colleges, endorsing the top high school, and it usually was involved a top player, and then they just endorsed the high school. That grew to a whole circuit of teams that our guy Tony Dorado now is in charge of
Yes.
of deciding which teams are Nike sponsored schools. So that's grown, but now they took it a step further, and it's branded the league that we talked about, and we talk about the Fab 50 a lot of national rankings. And just to give people an idea of this EYBL Scholastic in this current edition, go to ballslife.com, or we updated the rankings for the first time since the preseason. 5 of the top 6 teams are in the EYBL Scholastic. 8 are ranked, and Brewster Academy and Oak Hill are still unbeaten, and they're on the bubble. They're on the verge. Brewster Academy, they are one of the new entries into the league. Cheslea, there's a team that dropped out of the old NIBC, and it added 5, and we now have 14. So just talk a little bit about that and the 14-team league.
Yeah, so you basically, hit it on the head. Nike is starting a Scholastic League, which is just basically prep type charter type schools, to kind of just build on the grassroots presence that they've already, started. Just accumulation of the top high school teams in the league to make them kind of battle it out and kind of create a platform where, these top kids, as you said, could be seen in the high school space. Which they already usually are scattered around. You do your Fab 50 rankings or whatever, but the idea is to have the top teams all in one place, and they're going to be consistently playing against each other, which is going to manipulate your rankings in the future later on down the line, to have these top matchups that maybe you otherwise wouldn't see if this kind of platform wasn't created. And I know it already existed with the NIBC, but just kind of partnering with Nike is just enhancing it and making it better. And this is going to be the first year that it debuts, so it's going to be pretty interesting. I think Nike already has such a presence with just top players across the country, that it's going to just be good to have them in one space. I'm really looking forward to seeing how things kind of play out. This is going to be, I guess, year 1 with the partnership, but good thing. It seems to be a league that's gonna, go in the right direction. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are that, like you said, we've already seen it. It's just branded. Is that, like you said, it gives the public in general, wow, I got to be involved in this. This is where I want my high level kid to be.
Yeah.
The games, a lot of them are streamed about on ESPN, or are on their platform. And we've talked about that in the preseason rankings, where it's like, hey, if I'm 6'8" and I'm a pretty good wing or a 4, I want to go up against another 6'8" wing or 4. There's more of that. It's the iron sharpens iron mentality. The success is there, especially with the top teams in the league. Now, there's some new teams. Again, Brewster for the first time has their high school team. They've been in the New England prep school circuit for a long time with postgrads, but now they have a 4-year program, and Coach Jason Smith does a great job. They've added Veritas Academy, Canyon International Academy in Phoenix, and a few others. So it gives it a bigger platform in terms of more teams. And maybe there's going to be more teams in the future. Maybe they'll have a division, 2 divisions, or something like that. And I think what helps the league, Cheslea, is, and I talked to some of the top coaches about it, the top teams in the league, is they don't have to beat each other up so much. So if they go 14 this year, if they go 16 or 18 next year, then the teams only have to play each other once, and then there's a round robin where they don't play 1 or 2 teams at all.
Yeah.
Because the first year of the league, honestly, it was like, guys, you guys are just beating the shit out of each other. Like you're playing 3 or 4 times, and then it's just like you're just beating each other up, and now you have 8 and 9 losses. I don't think they wanted that.
Okay.
After 221, they started the COVID year, so 222 was the first year they had it, and again, a lot of them have 8, 9 losses. I don't think that was what they envisioned.
Yeah.
Until you do it, you start seeing, okay, I'm playing Montverde, playing Sunrise 2 times, playing the IMG 3 times. It's like, maybe they want to, the more leagues you have, the more teams you have, the less you have to meet each other, and it builds up more anticipation, right? So 1 year, maybe in 2 or 3 years, if you have Link Academy and the EYBL West, and then, Montverde and the EYBL East, and then they haven't met yet, then there's some kind of wow, they're going to meet for a championship.
Yep.
So I think that is what people could envision. I think it's a wake-up call, obviously, to the other brands, whoa. And it's like, what are we going to do? And a little bit of that. And they've been dealing with that, though, Chess. It's not new. So if we break down the most prestigious All-Star game, the McDonald's game, Nike's had affiliated to a travel team. The player has been at 16 or 17 of the 24 spots, some years 19, 15, 19 seems to be a number I remember. You know, Adidas has 3 or 4, Under Armour 1, and Independence has a lot more than people think. Independent is still pretty strong. You know, it's pretty interesting. Like, I'll give an example is Anthony Black. You know, does Anthony Black play for Orlando? I'm losing my mind right now.
Yeah, Orlando Magic currently, He's actually playing now. He didn't start playing, but now he is.
Yeah. So, you know, the independent is still there. So, again, that's changing. But so I don't think it changes much in terms of what other people think. I just think it's the public's now, wow, EYBL's in the high school realm. So, you know, people are not gonna like it, you know, but that's normal. I mean, when you have a company like Nike, that nobody's gonna like their moves. You know what I mean? Like that's
true.
Success brings that. That's not normal. I mean, that's normal. You know, it's a normal move. So, like I said, many of the top teams, go check out the rankings on ballislife.com. But, you know, as we talk about that, and let's just talk about the number 1 team, and it's not a surprise. Montverde's still undefeated in the early season. They won some big games. Speaking of Anthony Black, I'll just chime this in real quick. His younger brother, who plays for Duncanville, they lost Beckham back. He's really good. Remember that, fans out there. 227, Beckham Black.
Yeah,
the kid is really good. I mean, they lost to Montverde kind of heavily at the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, but like he really did some things.
Didn't have no answer for him though. The highlights were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he stops and go. He can get in the key, left hand finishes. I'm like, okay, he's pretty good for 227. You know, like So, you know, shout out to Beckham and other 227s that are going to be making a name for themselves. And it's always good again. And that goes back to what I've said. We've talked about some people having detraction from Montverde, and those teams have all the good players. Why do they play them? But then, if they beat them or if they have a good game against them, everybody talks about it. So there's still positives. You know what I mean? Like.
True.
Trust me, if an average high school team beats Oak Hill or Link, they're gonna talk about it. They're gonna pop their collars,
as they should.
Yeah. So that's where the flip side to we talk about a lot of good talent on these EYBL Scholastic teams. But you know, when we talk about those top teams, Cheslea, we're gonna probably see Link play Montverde on December 8th. In Las Vegas,
T-Mobile Arena.
Yeah, T-Mobile Arena. You know, fans, if you're out there, go check it out. But I mean, people are gonna probably hear about it in the coming days. It's about 14 days away or whatever it is. You know, 10 days away as we shoot this on a Monday night. But Montverde, if you look at them, just real high line, you just look at their players, and it's not a stretch. Cheslea, Robert Wright, McNeely, Asa Newell, I should say, Derek Queen, and Cooper Flagg, like all those 5s can be McDonald's All-Americans, all 5 of them. So, and then you throw in a few more guys on like Prolific Prep, which is not part of the EYBL league, but you throw that team and maybe a few others. Cheslea, now we're talking about like 10 of the 24 McDonald's spots. You know, maybe 11 or something, whatever the case may be in 224. But just what's your take on that? And is that? Well, yeah, what's your take on that?
I mean, I think it's incredible that a team could produce, probably so many McDonald's All-Americans at once, but I don't read too much into it, honestly. Sure. Historically, Nike kids or people that have played on the Nike circuit have been all over the McDonald's game. Sure. So, the fact that they're coming from one team this year, I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. If you break down, what circuit most of these kids play on, I think they're Nike kids anyway. So for me, I think it's cool that a team is able to do this. And at the end of the day, McDonald's is all about sending the best kids. And so it's not anything personal. If this team is stacked and, these are the kids that are all ranked within the top 20 in the country, then rightfully so, they should be there. So I don't really think too much of it. What about you?
Yeah, I just think that it sends a indirect message to a parent like, hey, Montverde has, again, they had 3 in 220 and IMG had 3 in 219, which is, no team has ever had more than 3. And they've done it. Some teams have done it a few times now. I think IMG did it a second time with with Keontae George in that group. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it indirectly sends a message like, I got to be part of this. Again, let's just say you had a son, Cheslea. It's like, I want him to be part of this because that's where success is at. Like, it tells you that whether you say it or not. Like, it's just the statistics tell you that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
am I
can see
going to
you
send my
wanting.
son to Shadow Ridge or Mojave, or am I going to send him to IMG or, like, really? Like, that's what it
No,
says.
I can see the
Yeah.
intrigue, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, your kid has to still be really good. You can
Yeah.
put him on any platform. If the kid sucks, he sucks. He's not going to be a McDonald All-American. So it goes both ways, like I get it, but definitely there's some intrigue in wanting your kid to be at the highest level and the best platform, because if your kid is like that and he's able to do great things against Montverde and Cooper Flag, then obviously that's going to elevate your kid. So of course, but you can't hate the player. You got to hate the game. Those kids are really good, and if they're deserving to all be McDonald's All-Americans, and it just kind of is what it is. That's how I look at
Wow.
it.
That's going to be interesting to see when, they usually will come out after the MLK weekend. The teams, we're not there yet. We still got a long way. We're not in December yet, but it's very interesting to see how that plays out. So good luck to all the teams in the Fab 50, and good luck to all the teams in the EYBL Scholastic League. But
for sure.
Yeah, just to give a real quick note on that, and as we wrap up episode 172, the McDonald's game has been around since 1978. It was 1989 when the first pair of teammates made the McDonald's game.
Mm-hmm.
It was George Lynch who later played for the Lakers, and Aaron Bain, who went to Villanova, who didn't play in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And they played at Flint Hill Prep, a prep school in Virginia. And then it was all the way to 219 with that IMG team that won the championship. And what's our guy's name who's at North Carolina? Armando Bacot. Is he still?
Yep, he's still there.
Yeah, in 219, IMG had 3, and that was like, wow, 3. 3. What are we like when the world was in? Like, oh my God, 3 of the 24. And then Montverde did the 3 the next year, and really almost could have had 4 with Moses Moody, but they had Dayron Sharp, Scotty Barnes, and Cade Cunningham. So are they gonna get 4 this year or 5?
I don't think they're getting 5. Who gets snubbed? Real quick, hot take if you have to leave one out.
McNeely gets snubbed, or maybe Robert Wright. I think Robert Wright should be in. Robert Wright's a bad boy. Like, again, 5, sometimes the voters might be like, nah, they can't all be that good.
Yeah.
Again, that's a give or take of it. Yeah, I don't know. Cooper's gonna make it. Derek Queen's gonna make it.
Yeah.
And then the 5th starter is Asa Newell. He might be borderline, he might be borderline. So it's still open for debate. I mean, the upset, I think, would be if they just had 2, Derek Queen and Cooper Flag. Everybody would be like, whoa.
Yeah.
I think the other upset would be 5. So it 3 or 4 sounds about right. I think they're going to get 3 or 4. Yeah, I think they can get 4. So I really like Robert Wright. I'm a big Robert Wright fan. I just think he's a good player. Again, has nothing to do with what team he played for. I just think he's a damn good player. So on that note, well, good luck to everybody. I think we're out of here for this episode 172. Check us out, and we'll be back, and most likely a couple weeks after that game at T-Mobile.
Yep.
We'll probably take next week off, and then I'll probably, unless things happen, I'll probably be a number 1 versus number 2 matchup. And our guy Ani, me and you will break it down. So until then, everybody, we'll talk to you next time. Take care.